A lot of people struggle with wrist extension mobility and poor tolerance in positions like being in quadruped or doing push-ups or handstands and things like that. So this exercise is going to help improve your flexibility, so your ability to get into a passive range of motion with a stretch and tolerate that position, and then build your active mobility and control and strength in that position with PAILs and rails. So you might not need the stretch if you don't feel a stretch in that position. So if that's the case, then you might be just skipping and doing the PAILs rails. Depending on your training session, you might only be doing the stretch that day, but I'm gonna go through both in this video. So I'm gonna show you a couple different variations or progressions as well, because a lot of people need to start a little bit lower intensity and build the intensity up over time. So the first way I'm going to show you is just with your own hand, because this is going to be less intense than putting it in a stretch position and adding load from your body weight. So for this, you're going to find, I'm going to use my right hand to push my left hand into my passive flexibility. So I'm looking to extend my wrist. You should see that kind of angle decrease, and find a stretch on the underside of my forearm. Now, there should be no pinching on the top side of your wrist. If there is, you don't want to push into that. That's closing angle sensations. We want to back out of it. Now, we're going to push until we find that stretch, and then you're going to hold it for the 30 to 60 seconds. If you're starting, working up to that 2-minute mark over time, which is our goal time to hold stretches for. Now, that's going to be level 1. Level 2 would be doing the same thing, but now we're going to put our hand on our mat or on the ground, and we're going to lean into the stretch from here. You want to make sure you maintain contact with the ground through the heel of your hand, the palm. We don't want that coming up, otherwise we're kind of pulling out of the range of motion or position or stretch. So we want to keep that glued to the ground, and we want to lean into a stretch. This would be level 2. Level 3 is going to be coming up here and doing the same thing, but now we're putting weight on it, which is going to be a little bit more loaded. There are other levels you can do this where your feet are elevated, so more of your weight is there, and you can even do this in more of a modified handstand position too. Typically, that's going to be very specific depending on what you're training. We don't typically need to go that far. This is usually enough for most people. Now, once you have held the stretch for the predetermined amount of time, we would then do the PAILs and rails. So for here, PAILs would be thinking about pushing into your hand. So you're trying to think about this movement. You're gonna feel all of the underside forearm stuff contract. You're not coming out of the position. A lot of people make the mistake where they're here in their stretch and they start their PAILs and they come out here. There shouldn't be movement. So make sure that the other side is really squeezing and you're pushing in. You're thinking about your fingers helping a little bit, but I really want you to think about this part coming down more so to really actively work on the forearm. Now, in this position, it's the same thing, but we're just kind of pushing into the ground. So once you have found those tissues, you're going to contract them a little bit, then turn the intensity up on your contraction over 10 to 15 seconds to the desired intensity, and then hold for 10 to 15 seconds at that desired intensity, and then you're going to ramp down. That would be your PAILs contraction. Now rails is going to be trying to do the opposite. So now instead of pushing down, we are thinking about pushing up. Rails is going to be contracting all of the stuff on the top of the forearm, right? So that is going to be stuff that might cramp a little bit, and if it does, we want to flirt with the edge of that cramping. It just means you don't have a lot of strength. We should not feel anything in the top of the wrist though, not pinching or pain at least. We don't push into that. So for the rails, you're going to contract and try to pull yourself deeper into that stretch. Ramp that intensity up over 10 to 15 seconds to the desired amount, holding for 10 to 15 seconds, just like your PAILs contraction. And then from there, you will be done with 1 round of PAILs and rails. So you might come out of it because you're done for the day, or you might be doing additional rounds, but that's going to be how we're going to approach a wrist extension stretch with PAILs rails.